Hey guys, how's everybody doing today? I hope pretty good. I'm here on a business trip at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Got my little Alan Jackson shirt on. Saw him in concert for the first time a couple months ago, and it was a fantastic show. But anyways, I'm in, like I said, Kentucky, here on business to do some stuff at Fort Knox. And I'm just south of Louisville, my hotel room. Wanted to give you guys a little video update. If there's any front row motorsports fans and NASCAR fans watching this is kind of like some of these are recent updates and some are older news about FRM that got put out a couple weeks ago. But the first one I want to cover is we'll just go over front row motorsports' driver lineup and some of the changes that's happening over there, and I guess you can call additions or new additions. So first things first is they, of course, lost Matt Tifft. They re-signed Michael McDowell. I had heard some rumors from some of my reporter friends that I know more closer inside the sport than me, of course, and they were saying that Ford didn't really want Michael McDowell back, and I guess Front Row Motorsports kind of ended up having to keep him because their options got limited. And then, I guess Ford was kind of like, well, yeah, that's all we got. And so, so they re-signed him. And I don't know how much of it was Ford didn't want him, but Front Row Motorsports still wouldn't mind having him back or not. But the rumor I heard was Ford wasn't really wanting to bring him back. So anyways, they signed John Nemechek, which I guess some of the people I talked to kind of knew that was in the works or that was on the table. I had no idea, really. I knew it was an option. I don't know how long that had been kind of in the works or whatever. I kind of feel like that deal was something that was kind of put together more last minute. I feel like, Front Row Motorsports wanted guys like Corey LaJoie and some other guys first, and that just didn't happen. So I kind of feel like John Nemechek was one of the, but I'm assuming he's bringing sponsorship of some sort. I would think he'd almost have to. But yeah, so, and that's Michael McDowell's problem. He doesn't bring really any outside sponsors. So the shocker that came out that really surprised everybody that I've talked to, they didn't see it coming, was Todd Gilliland running a Front Row Motorsports car in the Truck Series next year. Yeah, you heard me, Truck Series. So that's pretty wild. I don't even know what to make of that. It blew my mind. Apparently Todd Gilliland, I saw on his Twitter page, he said, we've been working on this pretty hard for quite some time now. And that, really took me by surprise, because that to me explains a lot. That to me kind of makes me think Front Row Motorsports was like, okay, hey, David Gilliland raced for Front Row Motorsports. I think it's pretty clear that Todd wasn't happy with Kyle Busch, who would be as an owner. I think Kyle's a okay guy and all, but sometimes his personality and the bad parts of his personality get the best of him. Tremendous talent, can't take that away from him, but just sometimes his comments and his mouth and his attitude and his kind of demeanor is less desirable. So I think Todd wasn't happy with KBM. And I would assume that, as a father, he probably was like, hey, I can go off Front Row Motorsports. I'm close to Bob Jenkins. Maybe we can work a deal. Keep racing in trucks. Keep building on that. And we can maybe see. I think Front Row Motorsports is looking like big picture, right? And that's always been how they've operated. They've built their own chassis. They've always done everything to where it's like, okay, this is going to take a lot longer and it's going to cost a little bit less, but in the end, it's all going to be way more worth it, as opposed to just like, you know, grabbing a low hanging fruit or whatever. You know what I mean? They're well, that's probably a bad analogy, but they're not doing a quick and easy route that's going to get them. They do hard work, long term, low risk situations. They don't do high risk, high reward situations really. You know, they want to make sure it's a stable climb, because they don't want to end up like MWR, and they don't want to end up like all these other Red Bull Racing and all these teams that shut down. They don't want to end up like Rob Devine and all these guys, BK Racing. So I think that they're like, hey, Todd Gilliland can race in Truck Series. If we have success with that, we can already have a developmental program. Because let's face it, the Xfinity Series, especially now the way it's changed and the Cup guys aren't in the Xfinity Series as much, and to be honest with you, like Atlanta, I'm going to Atlanta in March. I got a Cup ticket and a truck ticket, and I only bought the truck ticket because I want to see Row Motorsports con Todd Gilliland. I haven't bought a truck ticket in like 10 years because I just don't really have anybody that I pull for, or a team or whatever, you know. I like Todd Gilliland, but it's not incentive enough for me to go trucks. And they're like, oh, you know, you get to stay the whole day and watch the Xfinity race. I'm like, I don't even know if I want to. Like, I just don't think the Xfinity Series is worth a damn. I think that, I don't want to say this because I know it's a car thing, but I just feel like the competition almost is equal to Xfinity Series, to where, yes, Todd Gilliland and those guys are probably going to, you're always going to have that stepping stone process, but I feel like it's almost getting reversed, to where it's like, if you're really good in Truck Series, you might can just move into the Cup Series, because I don't feel like the Xfinity Series is even, that whole program, the competition, everything's going downhill. Now that the Cup guys don't race in as much, you know, there's not that, it just feels like NASCAR has just said, fuck the Xfinity Series, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, the racing there is horrible for the most part. I don't know, you know, the star power is kind of sort of there, not really. Sponsors, again, I feel like you see almost more sponsors in the Truck Series than you do Xfinity Series on the cars. I don't know what the ratings would be, but I think more people probably watch the truck races. And so I think FRM did great, and there'll be a swing. You know, it'll go back and forth. But I think FRM's looking long term, like, hey, it's going to be a development driver for the trucks as he moves up, you know, and this and that. So, and who knows, maybe they're planning on running the Xfinity Series too, but it's awful funny how a lot of these Cup teams have pulled back or pretty much gone out of the Xfinity Series. It's almost like, I mean, it's never going to go away, but it's almost like a lot of these Cup teams are like, trucks is where it's at. Trucks. Not Xfinity, trucks. So I think it's really, really interesting. I'm super excited about Todd Gilliland, and I'll be honest with you, my prediction is that I think FRM has a real chance of winning a race. I do. I think that they're going to have the resources, and from what I understand, I don't know how much this is true, but I understand that they let go a lot of people on their third car. And Row Motorsports has always, Bob Jenkins, God bless him, he's always, I remember when they were running like the 35 car with, Josh Wise years ago. They said they wanted to cut all the people from that third team, and anyways, you know, Bob Jenkins was like, well, you know, from a business standpoint, it's not, you know, it's not going to be worth it to keep these guys, but he ended up keeping them, and he turned all of that team into like R&D program, and this, you know, so he's always been kind of like, well, we need to get rid of him, but then I think his heart and his, you know, he gets out the checkbook and he's like, okay, we can work it out. So apparently, from what I understand, I guess those third team members kind of initially got let go, but then I don't know if there was a phone call made to them and they're like, hey, come work at the trucks, work on Truck Series. So apparently all those people, or the majority of people from that third car that was running Matt Tiff this year, are in the Truck Series now. And I'm sure some of them are still back in the second car. So Row Motorsports' whole concept, from what I understand, is to make the 34 and 36 Cup team better, because I think they kind of stretched their resources a little bit too thin with 3 cars. I think they would have. I think they still would have did okay this year, and they would have been better. But I think because the big time money wasn't there, the sponsors weren't there. Just Matt Tiff wasn't coming back. I think they were like, hey, you know what? Like, let's just do this. So they still have that third charter. I don't know what they're going to do with that. I guess they'll rent that out, make a bunch of money off that. I mean, if you own charters in NASCAR, you're going to be rich the rest of your life. I mean, just keep on, unless you're just not performing and NASCAR takes it away from you, which they can do. From Motorsports, that's not going to happen, and they're not going to give it to a team. I think that's just going to run into the ground. And I don't know how much that charter is worth. Probably not a whole lot, as much as it could be since Matt Tiff left and everything, and they didn't finish that well in the points, so it's not a charter it's worth a whole bunch compared to some of the other teams. I mean, that was a top 35 points car last year, I think, which, wasn't good. I mean, it could have been a top 30 points car, I think, if some things would have fell right. I think it was top 35. But anyways, they kind of took the wind out of my sails when they went back 2 cars, because I kind of felt it was stepping in the wrong direction, and I just felt like, they just didn't get the good deals on some drivers, and just nothing just worked out, and Daniel Hemrick was on the table there for a while, and it was frustrating, and I didn't think John Hunter Nemechek would leave because he's a Chevy driver and he's going to drive Ford, so I'm excited to see JHN. I think he's really good. I think that kid's good. I think so. I do. He comes from a racing background. His dad, he's, and his dad still races. I mean, he runs way in the back and everything else, but he still races. So, he's still relevant to some extent with what the cars do and everything. And, that mentorship I think is important coming from your father. That's the best thing you can get. And I do think Michael McDowell is a good mentor. I don't think he's the best driver, but I think he's a good, talk to a young guy. So I think it'll work out pretty good. David Reagan and John Hunter Nemechek have voiced they want to race some trucks as well next year. And so a lot of people are saying that FRM could open up a second truck on a limited basis for those guys, which I think would be awesome. I think David Reagan would be kick-ass in a truck race. I think he was never really good enough to be a constant winner in the Cup Series, but you saw people like Greg Biffle could do when he came back and racing trucks. I mean, it's just that experience that you can't get, until you advance those levels. And I just don't think that does it. So that'll be good if the FRM can. If Row Motorsports can start winning in a truck series or being competitive, that will, I think, help justify and promote their Cup Series team. Because then they can be like, hey, look, we can do it in a truck series because we've got the funding, we've got the resources, the personnel that we've learned from the Cup Series. The Cup Series is always totally different. It's a whole bigger, huge monster. And, I mean, it really is when he talks. I mean, I think it's been said before that Bob Jenkins is a multimillionaire. He's got the money, but it's just the knowledge, it's the resources, it's everything else he doesn't get. And a lot of that's because a lot of these really talented fabricators and engineers and everything, they don't necessarily want to go to Front Motorsports. They want to get paid a lot of money to go with the team that's going to win, that's going to continue to give them that legacy career that they want to get, and I don't blame them. So another cool thing that I think is going to help smaller teams like FRM and equal the playing field is NASCAR has announced that they're going to have, they're basically chopping off the rear spoiler, and I think they're narrowing up the front spoiler, which will all go to a lower downforce package. They're doing some other things. I can't remember exactly what they're doing to the car, but from what I understand, the teams are already pretty familiar with this package because it was ran 2 years ago, and so they already have the R&D for it and everything else. It's not going to cost a whole bunch of money from what I hear, but really excited about that because I think that that's going to put the smaller teams in a situation where, like, hey, if they have a really talented driver that's a wheel man, because I think, in my opinion, a lower downforce car creates a situation to where when you have lower downforce, usually you're having to put more wheel input in. You're having to kind of control the car more, and it's going to get snappy loose and everything else. And then when you do that more and more, tire wear becomes a factor, and then you have to manage your tires. Well, if you have a really, really good team that spends all this money on aero and everything else, a lot of that can be masked by the car, not so much the driver. Well, I think now the car is not going to be able to mask the driver's bad talent or good talent, or I shouldn't say bad talent, or it basically be a comparison to where there's drivers out there that are good drivers, but they run the positions they run because they're on multi-billion-dollar teams that have awesome equipment. If you put those same drivers in some of these crappier cars, and you put some of the crappier car drivers in those good cars, I think some of them would run better than a Kurt Busch, than better than a Ryan Newman or a Paul Menard or guys like that. Not that they're all not great drivers. I mean, they're all great, but I just think that it's going to be good for small teams. I think they're going to be able to really take advantage of that. I do. I think it's going to even out the playing field. I'm really excited. And furthermore, I think it's going to make for great racing. I think that NASCAR is coming back on a racing edge. They still need the superstars and star power they don't really have anymore. They're kind of gaining it. But I think if NASCAR could get back to really good racing, I think a lot of people would watch it. I don't think we'll ever get back to the 90s, but I think we can get a recharge and a reboot, and maybe we can ride that wave for a long, long time. And I feel like that wave in NASCAR does go up and down. I think that after the early 2000s, like 2006 and 7, I feel like it was just 10 years of Brian France and his bullshit and everything else. It just fucked up NASCAR. And I really think that if, they can just, this is what they're doing. They should have a long time ago. They're listening to the fans who pay for the fucking ticket to go see the fucking race. That's what they should have been doing to begin with. So listen to the fans. The owners now, I think, have been like, you know what, enough's enough. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, this isn't working. The fans hate it. The drivers don't like, we got to change this. So they're talking, they're listening, and they finally realized, which they should have realized 8, 9, 10 years ago with all these new cars, that every track is different. Every package is different. You need something different for Talladega and Daytona. You need something different for Atlanta, California, or Sonoma, whatever you want to call it. You need, or not Sonoma, Auto Club. You're going to need something different for Chicago and Kentucky. You got your mile and a halves, and you can have something that's pretty good for those, but then you got your mile tracks, and then you got your short, you know what I mean? Richmond and Phoenix aren't really short tracks. They kind of are, but they're not. They need a different package than a Dover and a Martinsville. I feel like Martinsville and Bristol, Dover and Bristol are kind of same type, high bank, high speed, short track, whatever. You know what I mean? So, and they can't really, and I think that they still need to keep with the PJ3. I think they need to develop it more. I think they need to find out a way that it kind of activates better. It seems like it's a little unreliable sometimes with temperatures and things like that, and it can cause a lot of issues. But I think that they still need to keep working on the PJ3. It's a product that people can engineer to make it better. I think it's one of the things to where if they can find a way to maybe respray it, at one of the end of the stages or something, make an extra 2 or 3 laps, just respray the shit. That'd be awesome. Maybe, if the first 150 laps were good, and after that it sucked because the PJ3 went away and you couldn't run top lane. You know what I mean? Use that as a tool. I don't think we need to just abandon the PJ3. I mean, I'm not about putting chemicals and stuff all at racetracks and everything else, but the same token, it's kind of like, hey, we're already talking about direct drive and all kinds of other crap and, regenerative braking and all kinds of other stuff. So why the fuck can't we use some type of chemical now? I'm not about it, but if it makes the racing better, go for it. Go for it. Other than that, I'm going to be in Atlanta this year. I'm going to be there on Friday through Monday. I'm taking off work Monday. Probably have to take off Friday too. And I'm going to be a truck race, a fancy race, and a cup race, camping out, tent camping, cooking. If you guys want to hang out, I will be there. I got pretty good seats. I've never been to Atlanta. I'm really, really excited about Atlanta. I think it's going to be an awesome race. It always is, but I think with this new package, it's going to be awesome. I think it's going to be so cool. And I'm really excited about it. So, anyways, those are my updates. I do want to go over, I'm not sure the sponsors, but I did see where F8 Auctions, who also sponsors some truck cars and Front Row Motorsports cars in the past, they made a comment on their Twitter at David Gill and said, welcome to the team. So I think you can expect them to be one of the sponsors, F8 Auctions. Check them out. They're cool. They've been long-term Front Row Motorsports sponsors. I think you'll see maybe a handful of loves on the truck car, maybe. I think you'll see Sitgard come back again for the Cup Series. I think maybe Shriners might come back. I don't know. That was a David Reagan thing. I don't know how it's going to work. I feel like they built such a good relationship with Front Motorsports, though, that to where I don't know. I almost don't see how they couldn't. But yeah, there's going to be some other ones that come back around. I can't think of them all right offhand. I think the Lewis Kemp Crab Delights car will come back on Front Motorsports. Maybe like the Exploring Resort car or some stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be, of course, you're going to have your other typical ones, but yeah, pretty excited about it. And I think it's going to be a great season for F1. I think that their Cup side, I think they're going to have a lot more success in the trucks than they are the Cup side. I think the Cup side, if they can run top 25 in points, that'll be huge, huge. And I think if they run really well, they'll set up that third car. And I think they'll be ready for that third car. I think if they run well, sponsorships there. They're kind of, I don't want to say they're make or break, but they got to start doing something. They've got to start propelling that team. They know it. I think enough's enough. I don't know if Bob Jenkins is going to pull out an extra little bit out of his wallet to make it happen, but I think they know after last year, like they just, this whole running in the back thing, that's over. Like they can't keep doing that. And they're showing they don't want to do that. I mean, they're showing it. To go into a truck series, that's saying, hey, we're really trying hard. You don't just do that when you just want to collect a paycheck and keep being a multimillionaire and everyone's working for you and you're just, you know, whatever. You don't want to do that. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will post something later on. Looking forward to Daytona. It's always a crash fest, but hey, it's Daytona. That means NASCAR started. Get Daytona with, real season starts. All right, bye.